in the silent darkness of a prehistoric dawn, before Homo sapiens, before the Neanderthals, there was another kind of human. They stood tall, gazed across the endless savanna, and dared to walk farther than any creature before them. They were Homo erectus, the upright man. But who were they, really? Were they simple ape-like ancestors, or the first explorers of the human soul? We tend to think of them as primitive, hairy, grunting, crude. Yet what if they were far more sophisticated than we've ever imagined? What if Homo erectus was the first being to dream, to plan, to imagine the future? The one who sparked the fire that still burns within us today. Over 1 million years ago, this mysterious species conquered fire, crafted tools from stone and bone, and roamed lands stretching from Africa to Asia. They survived cataclysms, volcanoes and ice ages, not through brute strength but through intelligence, and somehow, deep within their story, we can still trace the faint heartbeat of what would one day become us. But Homo erectus didn't just vanish. Their legacy is written in our bones, our instincts, and our endless desire to explore. They were the bridge, the missing thread, between beast and human, between chaos and consciousness. In this episode, we will travel back 2 million years to uncover the secret life of Homo erectus, who they were, how they lived, and the profound mysteries they left behind. Because perhaps the story of Homo erectus is not just ancient history, it's the first chapter of what it truly means to be human. To understand Homo erectus, we must first return to a world unrecognizable to modern eyes, a world where fire and predator ruled equally. The Earth between 2 million and 100,000 years ago was a place of violent transformation. Volcanoes tore through continents, the Ice Age waxed and waned, and vast herds of mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant rhinos thundered across the plains. Amid this chaos, a new kind of being began to rise, walking upright, thinking differently, shaping tools with deliberate intent. They were not yet Homo sapiens, but they were no longer mere apes. They were Homo erectus, the first true travelers of the human story. Archaeologists trace their origins to East Africa, the cradle of humanity. The earliest fossils, such as the famous Turkana Boy, discovered near Lake Turkana in Kenya, paint a stunning picture of this species. Standing nearly 1.6 meters tall with long legs, strong arms, and a body built for endurance, Homo erectus looked remarkably modern. He could walk and run over vast distances, perhaps the first to chase prey under the relentless African sun until exhaustion claimed it. This was persistence hunting, a revolutionary survival strategy powered by intelligence and stamina, not fangs or claws. Their skulls, however, tell another story, a mind in transition. Their brains, averaging 900 cubic centimeters, were nearly double that of their predecessors, Homo habilis, but still smaller than ours. Yet within that growing brain lay something extraordinary, the spark of abstract thought. They shaped tools not by accident, but with design. They used the Acheulean hand axe, a symmetrical teardrop-shaped tool found from Africa to India, Java to Europe, evidence of a shared culture that spanned continents. This was not random evolution. It was the beginning of human intention. But perhaps their most groundbreaking achievement was something even more transformative, the mastery of fire. Charred bones and burned stones from sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa reveal the earliest controlled use of fire, dating back nearly 1 million years. Imagine the moment, the night sky above, predators circling beyond the flickering light, and in the center of that fragile flame, a miracle. Fire was warmth, protection, and cooked food, but also something spiritual. It changed the rhythm of life itself. For the first time, humanity could hold back the darkness. The hearth became a place of gathering, of safety, of story. And with fire came the first glimpse of nighttime consciousness, the spark that allowed imagination to flourish. From Africa, Homo erectus began a journey that no creature had ever dared before. They left home. Over tens of thousands of years, they spread across the Old World, into the Middle East, India, China, and as far as Indonesia. Their fossils, like Peking Man near Beijing and Java Man on the island of Java, reveal an astonishing truth. Homo erectus was the first species to colonize multiple continents. No other animal had ever done this voluntarily. This was not mere migration. It was exploration. They crossed rivers, forests, and deserts, adapting to different climates, inventing new survival strategies along the way. In China, they learned to withstand freezing winters. In Southeast Asia, they hunted tropical deer and forged tools from volcanic rock. Each population evolved slightly differently, giving rise to regional variations. Ancestors of later species like Homo heidelbergensis and Homo floresiensis. This adaptability, this refusal to be confined by one environment, is perhaps the most human quality of all. Yet, despite all they accomplished, Homo erectus remains shrouded in mystery. We have their bones, their tools, and the ashes of their fires. But no words, no art, no symbols. They stood at the threshold of consciousness, but did they ever truly step through? Did they feel awe when watching lightning tear across the sky? Did they mourn their dead? Did they dream? Some archaeologists argue that Homo erectus was not capable of language as we know it. Their skulls lacked the fine motor control necessary for complex speech. Others disagree, pointing to the structure of their inner ear and vocal tract, which suggests they might have produced a variety of sounds. Perhaps the first proto-language, a rhythmic code of survival and emotion. Whatever their means of communication, one thing is clear. They lived in social groups, they hunted together, and they cared for one another. Evidence from fossils shows healed bones and old individuals who survived long past their usefulness to a hunting tribe, meaning someone must have helped them. Compassion, the seed of empathy, had already begun to take root. By around 500,000 years ago, Homo erectus had become the dominant hominin on Earth. Their reign lasted longer than any other human species, over 1.5 million years. They watched continents shift, glaciers rise and fall, and species come and go. And yet, somewhere between 300,000 and 100,000 years ago, they vanished. No cataclysm, no clear extinction event, just a quiet disappearance into the mists of time. But perhaps they didn't vanish at all. Many scientists now believe that Homo erectus didn't die out. They evolved. They gave rise to Homo heidelbergensis, then to Homo neanderthalensis in Europe and Homo sapiens in Africa. If that's true, then part of Homo erectus still lives within each of us, in our bones, our minds, and our restless need to move forward. Because maybe the secret life of Homo erectus is not just about the past. It's about the eternal question that drives humanity to this day. Where did we come from, and where are we going next? The world of Homo erectus, survival, fire, and the dawn of imagination. Picture this. The sun rises over the African savanna 2 million years ago. The air is dry, the grass golden, and the horizon ripples with heat. Herds of antelope move like waves across the plains while giant predators, saber-toothed cats and hyenas, lurk in the shadows. And in the midst of this primeval world, a small group of figures walks upright against the wind. They are Homo erectus. Their eyes scan the distance, alert to danger but also to opportunity. They are hunters, scavengers, and explorers all at once, creatures who learned not to wait for survival, but to seek it. The art of endurance. Unlike their ape-like ancestors, Homo erectus was built for endurance. Long legs, narrow hips, and sweat glands allowed them to chase prey for hours under the blazing sun, a technique later called persistence hunting. Imagine a small tribe moving silently through the tall grass, tracking a gazelle. They don't use spears yet, just sharpened stones and cunning. The animal sprints away, but the hunters continue walking, steady and relentless. Hours pass. The gazelle tires, collapses. And for the first time in Earth's history, a creature without claws, without fangs, brings down its prey through sheer willpower. This was not only evolution of the body, it was evolution of mind. To plan such a hunt required memory, cooperation, and strategy. It was the beginning of teamwork, a cognitive revolution hidden behind primitive tools and footprints. The Acheulean Revolution archaeologists call it the Acheulean industry, a leap forward in technology that began nearly 1.7 million years ago. At first glance, a hand axe may seem simple, but look closer. Each one is symmetrical, shaped deliberately, not by chance. It is artistic. These stone tools have been found scattered across Africa, Europe, and Asia, identical in design, as if generations of Homo erectus shared an unspoken blueprint. Some scientists even call it the world's first cultural tradition. To create a hand axe required not just strength, but imagination, the ability to look at a chunk of rock and see the tool within it. That's vision. That's foresight. Every strike of stone on stone was a step toward abstract thought, the mental ability to visualize an end goal. It's no exaggeration to say that when Homo erectus lifted a hammerstone, they were not just shaping rock, they were shaping the future. The mastery of fire. But the greatest of their secrets lay not in their hands, but in the flicker of light they learned to control. Fire. In a cave deep within South Africa, scientists uncovered ancient ash mixed with burnt bones, the earliest evidence of controlled fire, nearly 1 million years old. This was not lightning, nor wildfire. It was deliberate. Imagine the night before that discovery. A storm rages, lightning strikes a tree, and flames roar. Most animals flee, but one small group of Homo erectus stays. They approach cautiously, gripping branches, eyes wide with both terror and wonder. They take a burning stick back to their camp. It hisses, crackles, alive. Around it, shadows dance. The fire drives away predators, warms the cold, cooks the food, and transforms the night into something new. A time of safety, of reflection, of story. Around that fire, something awakened. Imagination. Fire allowed them to look beyond mere survival. It extended the day, giving time to think, to teach, to plan. Some anthropologists even believe this is where language began, in the glow of the hearth, as gestures and sounds became meaning, as knowledge was passed from one generation to the next. The fire was more than a tool. It was the first symbol of human consciousness. The family of the flame. Archaeological evidence shows that Homo erectus lived in groups, perhaps extended families of 10 to 20 individuals. They cared for their young, protected the weak, and likely shared food. Some remains show healed injuries, proof that others must have tended to the wounded. This is not the behavior of beasts. This is compassion, empathy before civilization. Around those fires, bonds formed. Mothers taught daughters to shape tools. Elders told of hunting grounds and storms. The rhythm of speech began to emerge, not yet full language, but a proto-communication rich with tone, gesture, and rhythm. And as they stared into the fire, they must have felt something strange, something new. The awareness of self, the realization of being. The global pioneers from Africa, Homo erectus, spread further than any creature before them. They reached the Middle East, crossed the Indian subcontinent, and adapted to the forests of Southeast Asia. Their fossils appear in places like Dmanisi, Georgia, Zhoukoudian, China, and Ngandong, Indonesia, forming a map of the first human diaspora. In China, the famous Peking Man built shelters and hunted deer. On the island of Java, Java Man braved volcanic lands, perhaps using rafts or natural land bridges, suggesting early navigation instincts. Wherever they went, they adapted. In cold regions, they crafted hides from animal skins. In tropical ones, they hunted elephants and rhinoceroses. They were the first to understand that nature could be tamed. That environment was not destiny, but challenge. The quiet genius. What made Homo erectus so successful was not brute strength, but patience and curiosity. They didn't need to invent fast. They had time. Over nearly 1.5 million years, they refined their skills, passing them down generation after generation. If you walked into their camp, you'd see not chaos, but order. Hearths arranged in circles, tools stored neatly, bones placed systematically. They were organized, deliberate, and intelligent. Some scientists speculate they may have used pigments or symbolic markings, though direct evidence is rare. Others believe they engaged in ritual behavior. Perhaps not religion as we know it, but reverence for the forces of life and death. In their simplicity, they hid a profound truth. The mind of Homo erectus was not primitive. It was the mind of a pioneer, curious, adaptable, and self-aware. In the grand timeline of evolution, Homo erectus represents a bridge, a threshold between animal instinct and human awareness. They didn't yet build temples, carve statues, or paint caves, but they dreamed of survival and, in doing so, created the foundation of what would one day become civilization itself. They were the first to ask, perhaps silently, a question that still haunts us today. What lies beyond the firelight? And that question, that restless curiosity, would define humanity for eternity. The mind of Homo erectus, between beast and thinker. When we look at the fossilized skull of Homo erectus, it's easy to see only bone and shadow. But what truly matters is what once lived inside that skull, a brain that burned with the first flickers of human thought. Theirs was a mind caught between instinct and imagination, between the animal and the philosopher. The architecture of thought. The brain of Homo erectus averaged about 900 cubic centimeters, almost twice that of their predecessor Homo habilis, and nearly 3/4 of the modern human brain. This increase wasn't just size, it was structure. The frontal lobe, the seat of planning, decision-making, and emotional control, began to expand. For the first time, evolution wasn't just sculpting muscle, it was sculpting mind. They could plan a hunt, anticipate danger, remember distant water sources, and teach their young. This was long-term thinking, something no other animal had mastered. But intelligence is not a straight line. It's a mosaic of breakthroughs, pauses, and leaps, and Homo erectus stood right in the middle of that pattern, the living experiment that would define the fate of all who followed. The great debate. Were they like us? Anthropologists have long debated just how human Homo erectus truly was. Did they speak? Did they dream? Did they understand death? One school of thought argues that Homo erectus lacked symbolic reasoning, that they were bound by the physical world, unable to imagine what they could not see. But evidence tells another story. In Java, archaeologists uncovered clamshells engraved with geometric patterns, dating back nearly 500,000 years. They are the oldest known abstract carvings made by a human ancestor. If true, it suggests that Homo erectus may have been the first to create art, simple, deliberate, yet deeply profound. That single act, the carving of a line, may represent the dawn of the symbolic mind. The forgotten voice language remains one of the great mysteries of Homo erectus. Their skulls reveal a brain capable of communication, and their inner ears, preserved in fossilized bone, were tuned to frequencies similar to ours. They might not have spoken full sentences, but they likely used complex vocalizations, clicks, hums, gestures, and rhythmic patterns. Imagine a group gathered around a fire. One points toward the dark, grunting a warning. Another imitates the sound of a predator. Over time, these signals would evolve into meaning, and meaning into understanding. It's possible that Homo erectus invented the first proto-language, the foundation upon which all human speech was later built. If so, every word spoken today, every poem, every story, every whisper, traces back to their throats. The social brain. For a species to survive across continents, cooperation was essential. Fossil sites show that Homo erectus lived in groups that hunted together, shared food, and possibly cared for their dead. One skeleton discovered in Georgia showed a male with almost no teeth, yet he had lived for years after losing them. Someone must have chewed food for him or fed him soft plants and meat. That simple act of compassion marks a turning point in evolution. Because evolution isn't only about strength, it's about connection, it's about empathy, community, and memory. Homo erectus may have been the first to feel the emotional bonds that still define humanity today. The long journey north. By 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus had walked out of Africa. Their footprints mark one of the boldest migrations in prehistory, from the Rift Valley to the forests of Eurasia. At Dmanisi in Georgia, a site dating to 1.77 million years ago, archaeologists uncovered several skulls, each astonishingly different, some with small brains, others large, some robust, others delicate. And yet they all lived together, proof that variation was accepted, perhaps even understood. It was a miniature snapshot of humanity before humanity, a species already capable of diversity, cooperation, and adaptation. In Zhoukoudian, near modern-day Beijing, evidence shows that Peking Man survived brutal winters, using fire and shelter to withstand the cold. And in Java, Homo erectus learned to live near volcanic landscapes, sometimes surviving eruptions that wiped out entire ecosystems. Through drought, flood, and ice, they endured. They were the first global citizens of the ancient Earth. The disappearance mystery. And then, silence. Somewhere between 300,000 and 100,000 years ago, Homo erectus vanished from the fossil record. No great extinction, no meteor impact, no clear trace. Just the slow fading of a species that had ruled for over 1.5 million years. What happened? One theory suggests they evolved into newer forms. Homo heidelbergensis, the ancestor of both Neanderthals and modern humans. Another argues they were outcompeted, replaced by smarter, more adaptable relatives. Yet perhaps the truth is more poetic. Maybe they didn't disappear. Maybe they were absorbed, their legacy carried within every human heartbeat today. Because Homo erectus didn't fail. They became us. Echoes in our DNA. Modern genetic studies suggest that while Homo erectus left no direct DNA in today's populations, their evolutionary influence is everywhere. Our ability to sweat, to run long distances, to use tools, all trace back to them. Even our curiosity, the drive to explore, to leave home, to ask questions, began with Homo erectus. They were the first to challenge nature and to imagine something beyond survival. And in that challenge, they unknowingly set the stage for everything that would come after: language, culture, art, and civilization itself. The first dreamers. Somewhere, deep in a cave now lost to time, a group of Homo erectus huddled beside a dying fire. Above them, the stars blazed across the African night. Did they look up and wonder, as we do, what lay beyond those lights? We may never know, but perhaps that's the truest sign of kinship, not what we can prove, but what we feel. The same questions that haunt us, who are we? Why are we here, might have stirred faintly in their ancient minds. For Homo erectus was not just another step in evolution. They were the beginning of consciousness, the first creatures to sense the mystery of existence. Their fire lit the darkness of the Pleistocene, and in a way, it still burns, in our imagination, in our search for meaning, and in our endless desire to explore. Because long before we called ourselves human, they already were. Lessons from the upright ones, what Homo erectus still teaches us. It's easy to look at Homo erectus as ancient, primitive even, a species buried under millions of years of dust and silence. But if we listen closely, their story whispers something timeless, something profoundly human. Because Homo erectus wasn't just an ancestor. They were the first mirror, showing us what it truly means to survive, adapt, and dream. And in that reflection, we see ourselves more clearly than ever. 1. The courage to stand upright. The name Homo erectus means upright man, and that definition goes far beyond posture. Standing upright was more than anatomy, it was defiance. Every creature around them crawled, slithered, or hunted on 4 legs, but Homo erectus rose on 2. They stood against a world of predators, with nothing but wit and willpower as weapons. To stand upright in a hostile world was a statement. We refuse to crawl through life. And perhaps that's the first great lesson they left us, that standing tall in the face of fear is the beginning of all progress. We too live in a world that challenges our endurance, a different jungle filled with noise, chaos, and competition. But every time we rise, every time we confront the unknown instead of shrinking from it, we echo that first evolutionary rebellion. We carry forward the legacy of the upright ones. 2. The fire within. The second great inheritance from Homo erectus is fire, not just the physical kind, but the symbolic one. Fire was survival, but it was also transformation. It turned raw meat into nourishment, darkness into safety, fear into comfort. But more than anything, fire represented control over nature, the first moment a creature on Earth bent the forces of the universe to its will. Today, our fires are different. They are the lights of our cities, the glow of our screens, the spark of our creativity and ambition. But the essence remains the same, the desire to bring light into darkness. We must remember that the fire outside is only a reflection of the one within, the restless energy that drives us to create, explore, and understand. Just as Homo erectus gathered around the flames to share warmth and ideas, we gather around our modern fires, our communities, our technology, our stories, still trying to make sense of the mystery around us. So ask yourself, what fire keeps you alive? Is it curiosity, love, the search for meaning? Whatever it is, guard it, feed it, pass it on. Because the moment that fire dies, humanity forgets who it is. 3. The art of adaptation. Homo erectus thrived for nearly 2 million years, far longer than Homo sapiens has yet existed. They survived droughts, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and migrations across continents. How? Because they didn't fight nature. They adapted to it. When the savanna dried, they moved. When prey disappeared, they changed their tools. When the cold came, they found shelter and learned to use fire for heat. Adaptability wasn't a skill, it was a philosophy. It meant listening to the environment rather than trying to dominate it. Today, we face our own kind of climate shifts, not just environmental but cultural and technological. And maybe we can learn something from them, that survival isn't about resistance, but resilience. It's about knowing when to evolve, when to let go of old ways, and when to take bold steps into new ones. Because every time we reinvent ourselves, every time we find a way to endure, we echo the spirit of Homo erectus wandering through unknown lands, adapting to whatever the earth threw their way. 4. The power of community. For all their toughness, Homo erectus didn't survive alone. They hunted together, shared food, and protected the weak. Archaeological evidence of healed bones and elderly survivors tells us that compassion, not cruelty, was their secret weapon. It's easy to think of evolution as a battle of the fittest, but perhaps that's only half the truth. Because what made humans thrive wasn't isolation, it was connection. In every campfire circle, every shared meal, every moment of cooperation, Homo erectus discovered a truth that still defines us. We are stronger together than apart. In our modern world, we often forget that. We chase independence, individuality, and competition. But evolution doesn't reward the lone wolf. It rewards the tribe. So when we build families, communities, and societies, we are continuing a bond that began nearly 2 million years ago. A lineage of care, empathy, and shared survival. 5. The mystery of consciousness. Perhaps the most haunting question of all is this: did Homo erectus know that they would die? Did they understand mortality or the passage of time? Did they look at the horizon and wonder, what comes after this? We may never know, but the fact that we ask that question at all reveals something profound. Because that question, the awareness of life and death, is the root of all art, religion, and philosophy. And even if Homo erectus couldn't speak it, perhaps they felt it. The first flicker of consciousness, the first whisper of the human soul, that moment when awareness looked back upon itself, was the dawn of humanity. And it began not with us, but with them. 6. The continuity of the human story. We often think evolution ended with us, as if we are the final product. But in truth, we are only the latest draft of a story still being written. The DNA that once powered Homo erectus still flows through us, shaping how we move, think, and dream. When a child takes their first steps, they repeat that ancient act of standing upright. When a traveler ventures into the unknown, they follow the same call that led Homo erectus across continents. When an inventor strikes flint and steel, or an artist carves a symbol into stone, they echo the same hands that once shaped the first tools. We are not separate from them. We are them, refined, evolved, and still searching. The fire they lit has never gone out. It simply changed forms. Now it burns in the circuits of our machines, the light of our ideas, and the depths of our imagination. So when we ask, what makes us human? The answer is simple: Homo erectus. Because they were the first to wonder, the first to dare, the first to step out of darkness and look toward the unknown. In the end, the secret life of Homo erectus is not just buried in fossil beds and museum glass. It lives in every act of curiosity, compassion, and courage that we perform today. They remind us that humanity isn't defined by technology or cities, but by something far older: the will to rise, to adapt, to imagine, and to connect. And perhaps that's their greatest legacy. They taught us that survival is not the purpose of life, understanding is. The first flame: what Homo erectus left behind. 2 million years ago, somewhere in the vast wilderness of Africa, a spark lit up the night. It was small, fragile, but it changed everything. Around that flickering flame sat a handful of beings who had learned to stand upright, to think, to imagine. They were Homo erectus, the first humans to truly look into the darkness and see more than danger. They saw possibility. That small moment, a hand grasping a burning branch, was the dawn of everything we are. When we speak of evolution, we often think in terms of bones, tools, and timelines. But Homo erectus teaches us that evolution is more than biology. It's becoming. They didn't just adapt to the world, they reshaped it. They carried fire across continents. They turned stone into weapon, survival into story. They taught us that intelligence isn't measured by how much we know, but by how much we dare to imagine. Theirs was not a civilization of words or walls, yet their influence stretches farther than any empire ever built. They lasted longer than Rome, Egypt, and all of recorded history combined. For nearly 2 million years, they walked the earth, an unbroken lineage of curiosity and endurance. Their footprints are gone, erased by time. But their idea remains, written not in stone, but in us. Think about this. Every time you hold a tool, every time you gather with others around a light, every time you wonder about your future, you are repeating an ancient ritual born in the mind of Homo erectus. We are not the pinnacle of evolution. We are the continuation of their story. They were the first to ask, even without words, what lies beyond the firelight? And that question still drives us into space, into science, into the mysteries of consciousness itself. In their silence, they taught us the greatest lesson of all, that discovery begins not with knowledge, but with wonder. Perhaps the real, secret life of Homo erectus is this. They never truly disappeared. They live on in the rhythm of our heartbeat, in the architecture of our bones, in the restless dream that pushes humanity ever forward. They were the first dreamers, the first explorers, the first to tame fear and call it fire. And maybe, just maybe, they were the first to understand that the light we chase is not out there, but within us. So the next time you stare into a campfire or into the glow of a screen late at night, remember, you are not so different from them. You are still gazing into the same eternal flame, the fire that Homo erectus lit 2 million years ago, and that has never gone out. Because the secret life of Homo erectus is the story of us all, a story of survival, a story of awakening, a story still being written, one heartbeat, one spark, one idea at a time. Closing narration, slow, cinematic. What other forgotten species lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting to reveal the next chapter of who we are? What mysteries still slumber in the bones of our ancestors? And most importantly, if Homo erectus was the first to look beyond the horizon, what new horizon are we about to cross? The answers, as always, wait in the silence between the flames. Outro. Narrator tone. If you enjoyed this journey into the dawn of humanity, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. Join us next time as we continue uncovering the forgotten origins of our species, one mystery at a time, because the story of humanity is far from over.